So I'm super excited about this one, special Sixers edition. Now I'm joined by two of the biggest trusters of the process in Nick Kellen and Lewis Gray. Boys, welcome. We'll get started by looking at the 76ers offseason. Eventful as always. Now bringing on Daryl Morey was probably the best move we could have made. So outside of that, Nick, what was your favorite move of our offseason?
Obviously Daryl was a big fish for us, and it kind of brought some stability back to what's been a very disgruntled and discombobulated front office, which we've been complaining about in a private Instagram group chat for 2.5 years now. I actually think the biggest thing is probably not who he brought on, but getting off Horford. Like, it cannot be understated how bad that contract was from a fit perspective, from a money perspective, from, I don't know, all things being aligned with the universe perspective. So to get him off and then to get a guy in Danny Green back who wasn't outstanding in the bubble, but I think there was some question about an Achilles injury or him being under an injury cloud. So to get him back, who's just a 3-and-D guy, which is what we need, was a big win. So getting off Horford's for mine is number one.
Yeah, I think there was an aspect to that I think we were all pretty worried about, the fact that Horford was a top 5, top 3 worst contract in the league. So
In
the fact
history.
that we only, in history,
Yeah,
yeah. So the fact that we only had to attach that 2025 first rounder. Now look, it's unprotected, but the fact that we didn't say have to throw in a second first rounder or one of those dreaded pick swaps that always seem to come back and bite the team that throws them out, as you say, is a massive win. So Lewis, how about you?
I'm in the same boat as Nick. I'm guessing you're in that same boat as well, Christian. Just that Horford trade to OKC was great. The Daryl move, I know, just good. I'm just glad to see no overpays this offseason. Every offseason throughout the season with that Jimmy Butler trade, Covington, Saric, just nice to see a bit of stability. And Green, the idea of him will be great in the Sixers lineup. Shooting around Simmons, shooting around Embiid will be great. And yeah, I'm just glad there's no overpays this offseason.
I reckon just hitting on that quickly.
Yeah, of course.
You saw, and I think you mentioned it before, Christian, the amount that shooters got paid, like the premium on shooting in the NBA, has just gone to a completely different level. Like Bertans, Joe Harris, guys who, yes, they're flamethrowers, right? Yes, they play the modern NBA better than 99% of the league. So I understand why the money's thrown at them. But for us to have Seth Curry on what's his figure? $8 million a year.
Yeah.
Compared to them is just like, it's an absolute treasure, right? Like
Green's on
every board. Yeah. Yeah.
And should be good. He had a horrific bubble, and I think that may be a bit of an anomaly. So hopefully
Bubble's weird though. Like, I don't know. It really did suit some people, and it suited teams, I think. Like,
yeah.
And obviously it's going to be strange with like the truncated season and not having fans in, and some arenas having fans. But I think when you look at Seth Curry and the way he plays, we get an element of a secondary ball handler. We get a guy who's going to run off screens like Redick, catch and shoot. Again, just keep throwing them up. And from a spacing perspective, and a guy who is historically one of the best three-point shooters in NBA history, as crazy as that sounds, like, that's a great win for us to have. I much prefer to have him than not have him, put it that way.
For me, I love that we actually got Doc. I think that was very big and very smart of us to go out there and snap him up as soon as the Clippers let him go. So there's an aspect to this that we obviously needed a new voice in the locker room, but Doc has the credibility. He has the championship pedigree, at least with the Celtics. And I think he'll be able to get the most out of this Ben and Joel pairing. So that's not even mentioning then the Tobias Harris history. So we originally, when we first saw the Doc Rivers news, thought this is awesome for Tobias. Everyone in our group chat was pretty pumped about that. But the immediate pushback I think I saw from the general public was, well, the Sixers are so much more loaded than that Clippers team was. So, of course, everything was going to be put in Tobias's favor for him to excel in that season in LA. But my pushback to that would be, who's to say that Doc can't give Tobias minutes with the second unit and try and recreate what that was with the Clippers? Now, I know we like to, start off with Ben and Joe, and then Joe goes to the bench early in that first quarter and he sort of runs with that second unit in the second quarter. But who's to say we can't change it up and throw Tobias in there and just keep Ben and Joe together? Now, there's every chance he doesn't do that and he stays the course similar to what Brett did. But I think there's a really appealing aspect to having Doc in this locker room and being kind of the superstar whisperer. And if there's a chance that he can get the most out of these guys, why not be this year?
Yeah, I mean, on that, so we're humans of like familiarity, right? So Harris is the tick in the box for us is that he's played with Doc before, and that's where he's played best. For people have superstitions, people have different things. It can be boiled down to nothing, but that's a tick in the box. But I think the most exciting thing on that aspect is listening to the way that Doc and Daryl Morey were talking about it. You saw this thing happen where Harris was playing off pin downs and running as a curler and getting handoffs and then dribbling through like seconds 16 to 8 in a shot clock. And then he would have to go and attack off the dribble or try and kick it to, I don't know, Korkmaz, who was contested in the corner, or Ben, who'd flashed out of a post-up position to go and then try and generate with 5 seconds left. And would always end up with like a Josh Richardson heave, or like it was just ugly to watch. And I think what Doc was saying is that this year a big emphasis is going to be him just attacking off the dribble with like a quick first step. And the thing that no one acknowledged with Harris is that he is a really, really shifty finisher around the rim, and he's quite athletic. Like once he beats guys off the dribble, he's going to go and get contact, or he's going to finish high. He plays above his size on that front. So less dribbling, more backdoor cuts, more take the ball and go rather than trying to generate offense yourself, allows him to play as a more pure 3, occasionally at the 4. But I completely agree with you. I think Doc's going to unlock that and make him our true third guy, which is big because we haven't had that for 2 years.
Yeah, that's a great point you made, Christian. I didn't think about the second unit, Tobias being the focal piece there. I feel like there's going to be some spacing issues in the second unit, especially with Dwight as our center. And I think Tobias being that main guy, being able to create a shot will alleviate some of those spacing issues, shoot as many mid-ranges as you want. I think that would be a good option. Did you see that report this morning, how he encouraged Austin to go to New York?
No, I didn't. What happened?
Yeah. I think Maury is trying to target Austin in free agency, but Doc said didn't want him to go, which is good in a way. He just doesn't want the kind of pressure that comes with having your son in the team. But yeah, I think Maury was targeting Austin in free agency.
Yeah, I think Doc actually, encouraged his son to go and sign with the Knicks. So, yeah. I mean, as a Sixers fan, I'm a little bit annoyed because I think Austin Rivers is really underrated. And would be awesome, leading our bench unit. But that being said, I do understand the concept of whatever instability that would come with coaching your son on the team, and even if it just throws things out a little bit from an optics perspective. You see guys who think they should be playing more minutes, and like, well, he's doing it because it's his son. It's like, well, let's get rid of that distraction and try and find someone else who can fill a role in a similar capacity or tweak it a little bit. So yeah, but that was an interesting tidbit that came out.
Yeah, no, I missed that. That definitely slipped under the radar. So it's funny you point that out, Lewis, because that initially just hearing that would seem weird that we wouldn't be able to snap him up. But okay, so obviously the Doc connection. Okay. Does that tie into a move you would have liked to see us make that we didn't? Would you have liked to see us go and get Austin? Is there somewhere else you would have liked us to go and get Lewis, whether it would have been through a trade, drafting someone else in free agency?
I guess the only move that I'm disappointed we didn't make was Sixers not drafting Tyrell Terry. I know that Seth Curry trade was great, but I love Tyrell Terry. I was so excited about him throughout the draft process. In the short term, it wouldn't have been great. Seth Curry would have been awesome, but I don't know. If there was some way we've got Tyrell Terry, that would have been such a great offseason.
I actually would have loved to have brought Covington home. I think we are a little bit lacking at a genuine 3-and-D wing guy who can play a bit above his size in a small ball lineup and can just rotate and just run and close out. And it's just a bigger body and a longer body, either playing off the bench or starting. That's the one spot that I look at and say that's where we can get potentially attacked by a savvy coaching unit. And unfortunately, teams like Boston, who are relatively deep, at least in their starting wing stocks, they're the areas that they're going to attack. And you heard on the Ricky the other day, they were saying, we've got Justin Anderson in. He's going to be competing for a roster spot with Ryan Brockhoff and a few other guys. And if it comes down to it, I would prefer to have Anderson just because he's a bigger body. And it's like you don't want to be thinking along those lines. You prefer to be saying, all right, I want to take a guy who I can actually plug in and get useful minutes out of. Because at the moment, it's a little bit backcourt rotation. How does that work? Front court rotation, specifically Embiid and Howard splitting minutes. How do they work with different groups? It's like, okay, but who's the plug between the two? Because Harris isn't the guy that's going to go and dog on defense.
No.
And clamp up and block shots. So, yeah, I think Covington would have fit the mold perfectly, and Portland got a really good one in Roker, and I miss him a lot. But that's the one spot where I think, and sorry, to clarify, I don't think we're done with that. I think not in the preseason, but I think before the trade deadline, that's going to be the area where Morey is targeting, is a guy to go and fill that area.
Would you have been happy to give up the 2 firsts to get him? Because that's apparently obvious. Well, that's what it took with Portland giving up one, I think, in this draft and then a future first. Would you have been comfortable with us giving up 2 firsts to get Covington if that was the price?
I didn't think this year's draft was great. Not from a Philly perspective. I just meant from a talent perspective available. Yep. I think next year's draft is amazing. And the year after is going to also be really good. So I have some reluctance with trading future picks, especially for the next season and the season after, in whatever capacity they may manifest. But that being said, I think it's always tough to gamble on stuff like that, right? You don't know where they're going to land. Covington is proven. He's spoken about how he enjoyed playing here. I don't know. It's hard. Some people have picked guys. Some people have give me a proven guy who's played before. So I tend to sit in the latter of that category because that's what I think wins championships. And Philly's for too long been in the pick them and grow them and nurture them to an element of superstardom. And there's no guarantees on that. So give me a proven guy over a pick, but I mean, you guys may think differently. I'm not too sure.
Well, I would have liked to see us pick up an under-the-radar guy like a DJ Augustine. I know I've mentioned that in the group chat, and you liked the thought of that as well, Nick. Just a guy out there that we know can handle the ball in difficult situations. He can hit shots. We know he was, pretty sure it was game 1 on the road against the Raptors. He hit that knockdown shot for the Magic. So he's a guy that just would have been very reliable and handy to put out there. He would have automatically been, the first guy off the bench. And it just gives you that stability, especially when Ben wouldn't have been on the court, as just a guy who knows what he's doing. Yes, he might be able to get exposed defensively, but I think we have enough wings to sort of cover for that. And he's a guy that I know he hasn't been exposed for at least a lack of effort. So I don't think we can put him in the category of he's unplayable like a Lou Williams or even, a Kyrie against the Bucks when he was in his last season with the Celtics. So there's an aspect to that would have been super nice to have on our team. 3 years, 21 does sound like a lot. Curious to know if we would have been happy to pony up for even 3 years, 15, something a little bit less. But that's the one I'm disappointed that we didn't try and target, because I thought he would be a realistic guy to get and he would have been a nice fit.
Would have been a great overpay for a 1-year contract, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe not 3, but yeah, I understand why you take that 3 years, 21. Hopefully that means they got a bit of hope in Maxi, that Maxi pans out.
Exactly.
Well, that's the other element. I think Maxi's will end up being a really solid ball handler. I think there's obviously question marks about his shooting. But I like the fact that he attacks the rim. Like, give me a guy who's... Yeah, well, exactly. Give me a guy who's not afraid of physical contact and who's not going to shy away from tough moments. And again, it could be a situation where Maxi grows into the role where he actually plays as a pure secondary ball handler, right? But
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I think second on my list would have been an Augustine type. I remember I put in the group chat, it would have been 4 or 5 months ago. Here's a list of 10 guys that I would be top three, really happy. Next three, yeah, decent. Next four, okay, fine, I'll take it. It's like, whatever. But and Augustine was in that top group. So yeah, look, I think overall I'm pretty pleased with the off season. I think there was potential for us to make a slightly more needle moving move that we did, but it's pretty clear that Moore and Rivers came together and said it's more important for us to get off bad guys than bringing in needle moving guys, at least in the interim. So we'll see before the trade deadline. I think they're going to play a bit more.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, as we move into this season, I know predictions are, they're only made to be wrong. But if we're in a 72 game season, what do you think our wins will be? What seeding do you think will be? And how far do you think we'll go in the playoffs? So Lewis, where do you think with all three of those?
47 wins.
Yeah.
I'm throwing it up there. I think they're going to exceed expectations. That stretch, was it 2018? End of the year when they went on that massive run, Simmons running fast breaks. I think we're going to see a bit of a reflection of that, if not better. So I think 47 wins. I think they'll get the 3 seed behind Bucks and Boston. But I think they'll make the conference finals and push for the finals. I don't know.
Love it.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Give
I'm always
me the conference finals. Give me a 3 seed. That'd be unreal. Nick, how about you?
I'm
a little bit more bearish.
Yeah.
Only because of the reasons that I outlined above. And I still think there's a couple of question marks. But pending a few extra moves, I have us slated around a 43 to 45 win mark. 45 being a really good season, somewhere around the 40 to 43 mark being a pass, but we should be comfortably north of 500. I see us probably getting the 4 seed. I think Brooklyn's going to play a lot better than people think. KD has never been an explosive guy who gets down low and bangs bodies. So as long as he can still shoot the ball and Kyrie finds something, I think Brooklyn's going to probably be above us, and then Bucks and Boston. Playoffs, I have no idea. I've seen Philly play terribly in playoff series. I've seen Philly play okay in playoff series, but realistically speaking, I'd be disappointed if we didn't give the conference finals a nudge, if we weren't in the conversation. I don't think we're winning a ring this year. I think that there's still moves to be made, but I think a pass mark tick in the box would be pushing for, if not a conference finals berth.
Yeah, no, look, I'm on board. I've got 45 wins. I've got us 4 seed. So I think the Bucks, I think the Nets, and I think the Heat will be the 3 teams above us.
Ooh.
I just
Celtics.
the Celtics. I'm not a fan of the fact that, well, look, the Kemba injury worries me first, and then, well, the fact that he had all of that time between March and August or September to get his knee right, and it still was a bit of an issue in the bubble is very worrying that this is more of a longer term thing than we actually think. I think losing Hayward is actually a big deal, despite the fact that people love to say that it now opens up the floor for Tatum and Brown to just be the duo and star pairing they're always meant to be. But like, I've heard enough of that crap. And I think actually losing Wanamaker kind of hurts. Like, it sounds very dumb. He's a nothing kind of player. Yes, I get that. But he was one of the better players for the Celtics off the bench. He was a steadier. He actually more often than not would really give that team a boost if they're a bit flat on certain nights.
He hit some big threes.
Yeah,
against us. I mean, we got swept, but he hit some big threes against us.
I think if they face the Celtics in the conference finals, second round of the final Eastern Conference Finals, I think we'll make the conference finals. I think we match up well against them this season.
Yeah, well, the fact that they brought in Tristan Thompson, I mean, we've spoken about it, but we haven't gone too much in depth. Neither of you guys are worried about the Thompson impact in terms of if he could even slow down Embiid, if that's even...
Embiid's giving Thompson 40 and 20 5 times in a row in a 4-1 series win. But Ty scares me way more than Thompson in a Boston Philly matchup for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I have us making the Eastern Conference Finals, similar to Lewis.
I'm normally the positive one here. I'm the one when you guys are on mental health watch when Philly's played 5 terrible games in a row. I'm the one saying it's going to be fine. And now I'm here saying that we're not going to get out of the second round, but we'll see.
Well, you're just tempering the expectations. I think you're playing it smart here. It's only ending in Lewis and I being pretty gutted, but no, there's just too many positives.
Embiid and Simmons hype this offseason. Embiid's getting physically in the best shape he's ever been, and
I believe it when I see it.
I'm buying it for the hype.
I've bought into the hype for the last 4 years. When I see Embiid not eating McChickens and watching Pokemon on the bench before a game, that's when I'll think that he's actually serious about getting his body right. Until then, I'm just going to not look at Instagram. I'm not going to look at any Chris Johnson highlight hoop runs.
Yeah,
sit there in a dark room and wait for the season to start, and we'll see what happens.
Who do you guys have for our best player this year? If you have to pick one,
I got Embiid. I think Embiid's in for a big year.
I've got Ben. I've got Ben winning Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
And I think he takes a step. I don't care about the 3-point shot. It's such a boring narrative. But I think he becomes the go-to defender in the league when people look at comparisons. And I think, as you touched on, Lewis, that 25-game stretch where he had the keys and was able to play with some spacing and pretty much just drive and kick and just get out and run like a bull, you're going to see that for 72 games. And I think he'll be our best player. And it'll be good.
Yeah. Well, I'm like Lewis. I'm drinking that Embiid Kool-Aid. Like, give me all your Embiid stock. Like, I'm buying the shit out of it. I really think. Any reports?
There are these reports saying that he's finally flipped the switch and he's ready to dominate the league. So hopefully it's real.
Mine's just a stab in the dark. Who knows? We've heard for so many years that he's been doing 2-a-days. He's in the best shape of his life. He's finally fixed his diet. He's a new man. And yes, part of it is, with Nick, I'll see it when I believe it, but I just want to believe it without actually having seen it yet. I want Embiid to come in and just absolutely dominate, be the best big man in the league, not be threatened by any, 35-year-old Marc Gasol. No, just like abuse everyone in your way. You are just like an absolute tank.
You know what I like? My biggest bugbear with Embiid is, right? He's my favorite player in the league. He's my favorite player ever. Okay, I've got his jersey right there. Right
there. Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm playing basketball 6 days a week. It's like, what do you mean? Like, yes, obviously, this is your job. Like, but he's like, oh, I've been going and shooting the ball twice a day and been in the gym twice a day. I've been doing it for 2 months. It's like, what do you? I don't understand. Why are we meant to be appreciating this? As you say, give me an entire season of sustained bullying, right? Give me a season where it's like you show no regard for the life of the guy who's defending you for 36 minutes, 37 minutes, whatever you're ending up playing in a regular season game. Once you do that, I will then start singing your praises to anyone who will listen. But until that happens, I'm not with it. I'm not happy. I don't want it to be a case where I'm not happy, but I'm not. So if he can take that jump this year, I'll give you both a big cuddle and say, well done, we're back.
These latest reports are saying that, now that he's had a kid, he's really flipped the switch and
Fred VanVleet Kool-Aid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
well, hopefully, the
kids matured him.
Correct. Well, look,
Hopefully.
I hope that something like that has flicked a switch and he just goes out and dominates. Because I think he's, on his day, he's a top 5 player in the league and he should go and show that.
Definitely. Exciting time.
Yeah, very exciting times. Now, on the flip side, who do you guys think our worst player will be? As much as we'd like to think every guy 1 through 15 on the roster will be like on the All-Star team, someone's going to underperform. Someone's going to just infuriate us on a nightly basis. Who do you guys think that player will be this season?
I've got Korkmaz. And close second being Mike Scott. I think Mike Scott's game has regressed ever since they disallowed headbands.
I think Mike Scott's due for a bounce back under
Yeah,
Doc.
I'm going the exact opposite of you. I think he's going to get to the point where he's almost unplayable.
Yeah.
Only because you watch the shots that he hit and the way that he played 2 seasons ago, where he came up, especially against like in that Brooklyn series, hit that big corner three. For some reason last year, when Brett was playing him at like a combo 4-5 in a small ball lineup, it was like, I can't hit a shot. Let me go and try and rebound and do other things to contribute. I think now that you've got guys who are floor spacers, they're going to take those minutes from him. When he's on the floor, and this is Korkmaz as well, this is my same thinking, they're not the two guys that can go on and hit shots for you anymore. They're not the two guys they're going to look to and say, oh, you can at least catch and shoot. We can maybe run some, running off screens, curling action with you guys. So it's going to be a thing where you've got Korkmaz and Scott going on and trying to prove that they're there and that they need to be getting more minutes, overplay their hands slightly. It reeks of they're going to go and miss like 3 big shots a night that just kill us. And I don't know. I just think there's so much more class now in front of them doing the stuff that they do and what they're paid for that it sets them up badly, essentially. That's my thinking.
Yeah. Lewis, who do you think?
I don't think it's those. So I don't know, like those Maori teams, they generally, I just think they'll have an easy task and just shoot the ball, shoot threes. They'll do that, and I don't think they'll have much more to do. I think, I don't know, maybe Tony Bradley or Dwight. I just think they'll struggle, especially with Simmons in the lineup. I'm not sure if there'll be much. I don't know. I just don't think there'll be space for them to do what they do. And yeah,
I liked Dwight's minutes with LA last year, and I do genuinely believe
I feel like if we had like a DJ Augustine, a good primary ball handler that could create in the pick and roll, I think Dwight would be better. But I don't know. I
think what you'll see more, what I guess they'll do is they'll run a fair bit of Embiid and Simmons pick and roll in that first unit, and having
at the elbow, that weird thing they did.
Yeah. I'd love them to do that higher, right? But wherever, I think that will be sort of their go-to in like 50% of half-court sets, and then with Harris, Green, and Curry, or whatever variation of that, make up just spacing. And then I think when Howard's playing 15 minutes a night, if he's sharing the floor with Simmons, it'll just be a thing where Howard almost goes from opposite low block, like weak side low block, to weak side low block, and Simmons can just drive and kick and create. But I do agree with you that it gets a bit congested down there.
Yeah, I think it would be a better option than Pell.
For sure. Pell's a shot blocker, and that's it. Like unplayable. Other than that,
I don't know if it's going to be a very fluid offense with Bradley and Howard, but you never know. Got to see what happens.
Danny Green, man, that guy is going to like make me go insane. I thought out of most teams in the bubble, probably watched the Lakers quite a fair bit. And there's times where Danny Green thought, okay, they're closing me out, so now it's on me to just drive it in, take a very dumb floater or force a pass. And look, you can single out the game 5. Was it against Miami where he had the closeout shot if he knocked that down? Because I think the Lakers won it in 6, but he could have won it in 5 if he hit that. Anyway, I just think it'll be a case where we just constantly feel like throughout the season that you could put you, Nick, you, Lewis, or me out on the floor and we would knock down the shot that Danny Green constantly gets. I feel like he'll get a ton of open looks in this offense, but he will just not be able to hit them consistently. I think his days on offense peaked when he was with San Antonio and in that final series against the Heat where he went berserk and broke records and really put on a show there. That was where it ended for him. I'm not sure he did too much in Toronto. I think potentially he was one of the crew that went disappearing when Kawhi needed to put up 45 shots against us in that game, game 7. I think just there's too much to say that he can't contribute on a consistent basis offensively, but I definitely do like him defensively. But he's gonna annoy the hell out of me. I can already see it.
I'm actually semi bullish on Green. His shooting splits at Toronto were good. From a percentage perspective, yes, there were times in that playoff series against us that he went missing.
Yep.
But I don't think we're asking him to do much, which is good, right? Like I think, as Lewis was saying, he's very much a prototypical 3-and-D guy who's there to space the floor and say, all right, you know your role. You don't need to attack. You don't need to play off the dribble. Just run and shoot and defend. And the Lakers did that with him. But again, I just think with our setup and our offense, this is a guy who has won 3 rings, has contributed to 3 rings. Lakers less so, but he brings a championship caliber and a veteran presence on both ends of the floor, and I think that's important. There will definitely be games where we say, like, what is he doing, right? Like, how is he missing those shots? And they could be stretches. There could be 5, 6, 7 games in a row where it's like, get him off our team. What a horrible, horrible acquisition he was. But I would still take him over a hell of a lot of other options that we would have. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it plays out. That's the beauty of predictions. You've just got no idea.
I guess you just got to hope that he's a streaky shooter. I hope he was just in a rough patch. But
yeah.
We'll
see.
Okay, well, that sort of wraps things up for what we sort of want to go over with Philly. Now, just quickly, we'll go around the league. Outside of the Sixers, what teams are you guys most excited to see?
I love the Lakers. I'm excited to see Dennis Schroeder and Montrez there. I've always loved LeBron, so I don't know. It's always been a LeBron team for me. Other than Lakers, I'm really excited to see CP3 in Phoenix. I don't know. For me, I think him and DeAndre Ayton are going to have a mean pick and roll. And I think they'll push into the playoffs this season. Phoenix should be fun. Devin Booker, they got an exciting young team.
I watched almost as much Pelicans basketball last year as I did Philly. I watched a hell of a lot of New Orleans games. I don't know. I don't really understand a couple of the moves they made. I think the Bledsoe fit's a weird one. And I'm not 100% sure what it means for Lonzo's future with the franchise, or whether Bledsoe is just going to end up getting packaged and shipped somewhere else. But I love watching them play. I think they play such a fun style of basketball. And they'll be someone I'm looking forward to watching. And then the other one's the Hawks. I mean, they just went crazy this offseason. Like,
yeah,
you look at they just made so many trades. Their roster has upgraded massively in my eyes. I think Okongwu was awesome, really, really good. And then they've still got question marks from a future perspective about what they do with Collins. Because I think Collins is almost demanding a max, and there's no way he's going to get paid that. Yeah. But I think Rondo's a nice veteran presence to have next to Trae Young. I think Trae Young is a woeful defender, but what he does every night with the ball in his hands is amazing. And I'll be watching a lot of them play because there's going to be a lot of high flying, not a lot of defense, but they'll be big ticket. And then Philly. Well, it always comes back to Philly. You can't forget them.
Well, the Hawks literally go 10 deep. That's the fascinating thing about them this year. If the starting lineup is, Trae, Bogdan, let's say throw in DeAndre Hunter, potentially look at John Collins. He'll probably keep that starting 4 spot, and then Capel at the 5. Hey?
Reddish may take a leap.
Yep, Reddish may take a leap. Then you have Dunn, you have Rondo, you have Gallinari, you have Okongwu on the bench, you have who's the redhead, Kevin Huerter. That's like 11, 12 guys. So who's to say that in a team in a year, that could be interrupted by Because if a guy gets corona, he's out minimum 10 to 12 days, I think it is, with the
Yeah.
NBA this year. So in a year where you really need depth,
Yeah.
the Hawks seem to have that in spades.
It's a
I
good.
I'm so high on Kevin Herter. I would
Yeah.
love him at Philly. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love him at Philly. I don't think I don't actually don't know what the Hawks are going to do with their starting five, because if you put Gallo on the bench, you're paying him an awful lot of money to not be starting. Um, so I don't know whether they can find a situation where Collins and Gallo play just a combo 3-4 and,
Mm.
essentially go positionless in that regard. But God, that's a bad defensive team. That is such a bad defensive team. If you ran a starting lineup of Young, Bogdan, Gallo / Collins, Capella, that team is having 140 plus scored on them every second night. So that's my question mark about them. But they'll be exciting.
Team that Philly would struggle against.
Yeah, they would. They would.
I just
Yeah,
think they'd torch us.
for sure. The kind of thing where they'd give us 150 on a night where we just couldn't get anything going, and then they would be on the first day of a back-to-back, and then we'd end up in Charlotte where LaMelo Ball has a career high and Terry Rozier goes for 40 somehow.
Yeah.
And Devontae Graham puts Embiid on a poster, and all three of us retreat into a spiraling sense of just complete sadness and despair about another failed Philly season.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few contenders for me. I was thinking Charlotte, was thinking Brooklyn, but I've come back to Portland. I think I've been sucked in by how they went in their seeding games from the bubble. So if Dame can continue just being an absolute animal, taking over, I think they'll be ridiculously enjoyable to watch. I actually have them as a dark horse MVP candidate. If they can push to, let's say, if they can somehow find their way in the top 4 of the West, I really does think that puts Lillard in the MVP conversation. Obviously, the Covington addition that we've touched on with you, Nick, is ridiculously helpful and important. Nurkic obviously came back in the bubble and he was a huge addition for them. Thank God it meant less Whiteside, and now Whiteside's gone. You hope Anthony Simons can take a leap, more Gary Trent off the bench. They signed Derek Jones Jr. from Miami. He's just young, 23, explosive. And then they also have Zach Collins off the bench as well. And they traded for Kanter. So they're another team that almost goes 10 deep, similar to Atlanta. And you hope that if Lillard just continues to dominate, that sky's the limit for them, because prior to last year, they got knocked out in the Western Conference Finals by Golden State. And then they had a really bad season last year before the bubble. So I hope that this year they can get back to that form, because Portland they won me a lot of money in the bubble. And secondly, they were just a really fun team to watch with Dame having to, it seems, carry them on a nightly basis. And then I even forgot to mention Carmelo. So there's so much to like about Portland.
Yeah. Seconded.
I think Washington will also be quite exciting with Westbrook. I think Denny Avdia will be a good fit in that lineup. Bradley Beal, I think they'll make the playoffs. I think the Pacers are going to probably drop a bit. Who else from the East? Orlando.
Yep, Orlando will drop. I really hate them. I'm down on them massively.
Look, it's not a bad season to be a bad team, no fans, and you'll get a good pick. So I think like Knicks, for example, in a great position, in my opinion.
Knicks is so interesting. I just don't understand. I don't understand that franchise. Like that, yeah. I mean, that's a topic for another day. But they just confuse me. I mean,
I feel like
I'm
this
not really
is
sure.
a perfect season to tank, given that they don't need fans at the games.
Yeah,
Draft's stacked.
the next year's draft is like
Oh,
could be one of the best ever.
Cade Cunningham.
Talking
Jalen-
03 vibes, like really,
Jalen
really
Suggs.
serious.
They're
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, that will be interesting. A little while away. We've got a Philly ring to get in the meantime. But
Yeah, definitely.
Rookie of the year. Speaking of young guys, who would you guys back to pick? Is it as simple as LaMelo, or is there something else that we're missing? Lewis, who do you think?
I was going to say LaMelo. I think
Yeah.
him or Tyrese Halliburton. I think he was,
Wow, Sacramento.
his college tape, he was dynamic. He's just has such a good feel for the game. Um, yeah, he just hits the right person at the right time. He's got a weird looking jump shot, but I think it goes in. He shot high percentage. And with Darren Fox creating, he can just knock him down. I guess he won't really have to rely on getting his own shots. And he's athletic, can drive to the hoop or dish it. I think he'll be good. And I think with Bagley, I think Bagley is going to be underrated this season. I think Sacramento is another team to be wary of. So yeah, Tyrese Halliburton, I'll say that over LaMelo.
Huge. Nick?
I've got LaMelo on top purely
Yep.
because you look at rookie of the years past. It's often guys who are the focal point of a team's offense from either a shooting perspective or a shot creating perspective. So I think Melo is going to have a lot of touches and a lot of usage. Still not 100% sure what they're going to do with Devontae Graham and the Terry Rozier situation, but I think Melo starts. He's got a nice little floor general next to him in Hayward that's come over. And there's not going to be a lot of pick and roll. There's not going to be a lot of that. It's going to have to be Melo, who's the ball, go and get us a bucket, get to the rim, attract some attention and kick it. So I think he's going to average a lot of assists. He rebounds surprisingly well. He's quite big. And then from a points perspective, I think he'll average somewhere in the realm of 15 to 18 points a game. And historically, they're numbers that get you a nod. So I've got him on top. And then my second guy is Obi Toppin at the Knicks. He's a human highlight reel. I think my only concern with that is that he's not going to be afforded the minutes that he probably deserves. I hate Julius Randle in that system. And I think they've backed themselves into a bit of a corner on that front. But Toppin's old. He's 22. He's mature. He's got an NBA body. So he's going to be playable. And if he can develop his jump shot a little bit, he's going to come up with a lot of big highlight plays, catch a lot of lobs, and defend well enough. So they're my top two, but honorable mentions Denny from Washington, and I also had Halliburton as a guy to watch.
Well, for me, similar to LaMelo, but to be a little bit more diverse, give me Killian Hayes. I want to see him given the keys. He's KOC's guy, famously Kevin O'Connor's number one draft prospect for a long time now. I think it's been on the record that KOC had him as his number one guy for majority of this year. But yeah, I really hope Dwayne Casey doesn't say, oh no, Ish Smith and Derrick Rose are going to be our backcourt. So you can just be there in the ranks, ready to come off the bench. And no, just give him the keys, let him run. Let's see what he's got. They went young. Obviously, Detroit's free agency was super confusing. I thought they had a good draft, and then they just went down the list of let's get Jahlil Okafor, let's get Mason Plumlee, let's get Jeremy Grant. Who's to say that Nick, you couldn't have got an offer from Detroit this offseason? They were offering everyone.
And a great 13th man off the bench, big culture guy.
Yeah, 100%. That's what they need, right? So as long as they give Killian Hayes the keys, he's going to make mistakes. But I think similar to LaMelo, he's a guy that's got a lot of potential to really just take the ball by the horns. Okay, I think that's what we should call it. Is there any hot takes that Lewis you want to throw out? Nick, you want to throw out any wild things before we end it? No,
Ben Simmons, Defensive Player of the Year and All NBA second team.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I've got.
Lewis's hot take was he's going to leave the chat. That was
He's heard enough.
He's heard enough.
Gearing up for preseason.
My Philly hot take. Embiid wins the MVP.
Wow.
Yeah.
If
we're going all the way in.
Go and have a flutter. Put your money where your mouth is.
I don't know what his odds are,
but
yeah.
Well, if that happens, I'll kiss your feet.
Okay, perfect. Looking forward to it. All right, well, we'll wrap things up there. That was the Sixers NBA preview. I'm sure we'll be back to do something else if Philly make a massive trade. If not, we'll probably do a mid-season review, post-season review, just to probably see how wrong our predictions were. But yeah, Thanks very much for listening, everyone. Nick, thank you for joining. Lewis, I'm sure if you were still here, I'd be able to thank you for taking the time out to do this, but had a lot of fun. Thanks very much.
Go Sixers.
Let's go Sixers.